Okay, good morning. We are gonna do our fourth lesson on this unit that is present word problem and mind math. We'll be using 4.3 and 4.4 in the textbook, so we'll be going through some of these questions. All right. So I think I already have these questions written down here. I don't even need to switch over. I think it works better that way. Okay, so if I need to figure out, say, 20% of 60, okay? How do we figure out 20% of 60? Well, I have Aaron, sure.
0.2.
What's that?
Because 20% equals 0.2 decimal and above.
So you want to take 0.2 times 60?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be great. And Jerry, do you have another approach?
Well, I divided by 5.
Divide what by 5? Divide 60 by 5. Okay, so we have two approaches. One approach would be seeing this as 0.2 and times by 60. Another approach is to see this 20% as 1 over 5 times 60 and therefore divide 60 by 5. Both of these will work. However, both of these, you will need some like pen and paper to work it out, right? If you don't have any pen and paper, is there any way to think this so that you can work this out in your mind? Okay, let me show you something. Can I rewrite this as 20% of 10? 6 times. Can I do that? Yes? So you see, I am rewriting 60 as 10 times 6. Okay, still the same thing, correct? Still the same thing. Next, I'm going to figure out in my head. Can you figure out 20% of 10 in your head? What's 20% of 10? Do you know 20% of 10? Sorry? What is 10% of 10? 10% of 10 would be 1. 20% of 10 would be 2. Okay? So that's probably that should be something that you can figure out in your head. Okay, so 20% of 10 would be 2 and 6, and you can figure out this in your head. It would be 20. Sorry, be 12. Would be 12. Okay, are we good with this? Okay, learn from the strategies. You want to be able to do this in your head. 250% of 400. Okay, we're going to use the same strategy here. Okay, we're going to think this in our head. 250% of, I'm going to split this into 104 times. Okay, so I'm first going to figure out what's 250% of 100. And I should be able to do that in my head, because that's easier to do. And then I take the result times 4. Okay, what's 250% mean? How many times is that? Jennifer, are you with us? What's 250% of 100? Jennifer, what's 250% of 100? Will be 2.5 times. Yes? That's so random. Okay, so this should be 2.5 times, because 100% is 1 time, 200% is 2 times, 250% is 2.5 times. 2.5 times of 100 will be 250, and then we'll put the times 4 in. Would be what? Again, we should be able to do this in our head. Yes? Would be 250, 4 times 1,000. Okay, so try to break the number down into workable pieces. Let's do some like fraction. What's 10.5%? Is that from me? That clicking sound. Okay, stop that. Thank you. 10.5% of 100. Okay, how do we do this? 10.5% of 100. What is 10% of 100? Sorry? What's 10% of 100? Okay, so in this case, we can split the question into, I know this is 100, so it's easy to figure out this is 10.5, but as a strategy, okay, you can say 10% of 100 and 0.5% of 100. You break the question into two, okay? Find out the 10% part, and then you find out the 0.5% part, and then add them together, right? So the 10% part would give me 10. The 0.5% part would give me half. You see, 1% is 1, right? So 0.5% is 0.5, and therefore this would be 10.5, okay? Do that. All right, so we are to find out what's 2/5% of 325. So first of all, we're going to do this in our head a little bit to kind of foresee what the number would be around. We know that 1% of 325 is going to give us what? 1%. So 100% would be 325. 1% would be really moving this decimal to the left by 2. So 1% would be 3.25. All right? And this is less than 1%. This is like, 40% of 1% is going to be much less than this number, much less than that number, okay? Like less than half. So knowing what the n should be, we can try to find out what exactly 2/5% of 325 is. To work with this better, I think we can change this fraction to 4/10% of 325, okay? To make this even easier to figure out, I'm gonna split this 325 into the 300 part and then the 25 part of the percentage and then add them together. So with the 300 part, I'm gonna make it 100 times 3, okay, for the 300. And I'm gonna say 4/10% of 300. And I still have that 25 to deal with. So add on to 4/10% of 25. Okay, next. Now I have two parts of the question here. This is kind of hard to imagine what is a fraction of a percent of something. So I'm gonna retranslate that, okay, into divide by 100. And I'm gonna rewrite that bar as divide, okay? So this 4/10% would be 4 divided by 10 for the over 10, divide by 100 for the percent of, it's times 100 times 3, okay? So that's gonna be that part. Plus, I know this is getting a little complex, but it's gonna simplify to some simple pieces later on, you will see. I'm gonna do the same thing with here. 4 divided by 10 divided by 100. So again, that's 4/10% of 25. Now we have two terms. You're going to identify the terms. That's one term. Everything is either multiply or divide together. That glue all the numbers together. And we got our second term here. Okay. Each term we can simplify. What do I mean by simplify? If you are divide and multiply the same number, you're basically saying times by 1. Okay. It's like times by, it's like 5 times by 100 over 100. That's times 100 divided by 100. That should be just 1, and the answer is 5. All right. So if we are multiplying the number and same number, multiply and divide the same number, then it's as good as times 1. So that cancel each other out. We have a divide by 10, and we have 3 and 4. I can do 3 and 4 first, right? If everything is multiply and divide, it doesn't matter the order. I can take 4 times 3, give me 12, divide by 10. Okay, so that's the simplified version of my first term. Second term, okay, 4, divide and divide, okay. So if you have divide 10 and divide 100, it's altogether divide by 1,000, okay. So this part is divided by 1,000. This part, 4 times 25, it's 100. I can do that in my head. Divide by 1,000. All right, and now we just have to solve this part individually and add them together. 12 divided by 10, shift decimal from here to here, 1.2. Plus, divide by 1,000, I gotta shift it 3 times. Okay, from here, once, twice, thrice. 0.1, altogether 1.3 is the answer. Okay, so this is the first way of doing it. The second way of doing it involves simplification of fraction. You may find one way easier than the other. It's your choice. Well, there's 3 ways to do it. The third way will be using a calculator. Okay, I'm going to show you the calculator way first. Okay, with the calculator way, this is how to do it. Okay, you're going to see this as 2 divide by 5, 2 divided by 5 for the fraction. Okay, that bar means divide. Percentage sign means divide by 100. Of means times 325. Punch that into a calculator, you got your answer. Okay, but without the calculator, what's the second way to do it? We're going to turn everything into a fraction and then simplify. I'm going to write the question down again. 325 is equals to 2 over 5 times by, divide by 100. It's the same as times by 1 over 100. See, 1 divided by 100. I'm still dividing 100. Times 325. 325 same as 325 over 1. I'm writing everything as fraction. Okay. When I have fraction times fraction times fraction, everything is just one term. In this case, I can multiply the top number, multiply the bottom number. But in this case, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just times them together. That one I'm going to omit, right? Because it doesn't really do anything. At the bottom, 5 times 100. Okay? So at this step, I could try to reduce it. What do I mean by reduce it? If I have 4 over 8, for instance, I can divide top and bottom number by 2. And top by bottom number by 2 again. And I know 4 over 8 could be reduced to 1/2. Similarly, I have in top a number, right, 650 if I were to multiply it out, and the bottom I have 500. Okay, I could start to find the common factor and try to divide both into the by the same number. Say for instance, 2 and 100, they're both divisible by 2. That 2 divided by 2 is 1, 100 divided by 2 is 50. Okay, I'm gonna divide this 5 out with the 325, so it's gonna be divide 5 by 5, give me 1, divide 325 by 5 would be 65. Okay, now 65 and 50 could be simplified. 50 divided by 5, 10, 65 divided by 5, 13, and that's as far as it goes, 13 over 10, or 1 and 3/10. Whenever you have 10th, this is same as 1.3. Okay, notice that only drop this over 10 to 0.3 if it's over 10, right? If you have, I don't know, 1 and 3/5, this is not equal to 1.3. Please don't do that, okay? unless, right, you change the bottom, say times top and bottom by 2, and then this will give you 1 and 6/10, and then you can turn this into 1.6. Oh, good, but in this case, that's just a side example. 1.3, same answer. Okay. With the video later on, okay? Make sure you got it. I'm gonna do one more before we do some word questions. We haven't done any word questions either. Okay, so how about 15.25% of 950? Okay. So in your calculator, you're gonna turn this into what? 50 point. A quarter is 25. Percent divide by 100. Yes? Okay, so 4% is same as divide by 100. Of means times 950. Okay, make sure you translate this into something that the calculator could work with before you use the calculator. Okay? I know some calculator would do fraction and percentage and some don't, right? So make sure you're translated into something that you can work with the calculator. Some word questions. Okay, so you will need to figure out how to calculate taxes if this fancy, I don't know, sled. I can't draw a sled. Okay, this sled has price tag of $250. Yeah, okay, and you have to pay tax, GST of 5%, PST of 7%, which means that in total you're going to be paying 12% of tax. Okay, you can figure this out individually, figure out what's the dollar amount, and then you add them together. Or you could figure out that, hey, this is 12%. Besides the GST and PST, what else do I have to pay? I have to pay the price tag itself, right? So the price is 100%. If I just look at the percentage, what's the percentage that I have to pay? 112%, 112%. So it's important to recognize that if you are paying multiple percentages, you can add the percentage together first. Okay? And then you would take 250. Okay? You know you're being paying 112% of 250. Therefore, you just say 112 divide by 100. That's percent, right? Of times 250, punching in the calculator, done. Okay? If you have not recognized that you can add the percentages, or you need to find out individually, then you would take what? It would take 5%, 5% of 250, punch that in the calculator, and 7% of 250, punch that in the calculator. In this case, 7% would translate to what? 7 divided by 100 times 250. Okay, that's what you would do in the calculator. All right, so you can figure them out individually, and then you can add the numbers together. Don't forget the 250 itself, though, right? Or you can combine the percentages, and then you do it in one shot. Boom, that's how much you need to pay. All right. All right, and I think that's a good summary of what is in 4.3 and 4.4.